but I want to hold my dad hand. 80 something, but he left last year, so that kind of sucked. But watching that scene of like her little hand holding daddy's, or daddy's hand holding her little hand, and then later, oh, that warms my heart. Yeah, maybe.
Well, she didn't like that scene. She asked me to cut
Really?
it out, but I said, "Wait, it's very embarrassing."
Thank you so much, Mabel, for being interviewed by me. You are an award-winning director for so many films since day one, when your student film, the immigration trilogy, 移民三部曲. So I admire you so much. So really appreciate you for being interviewed by me, Mabel, today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
So Mabel, I watch your film straight away when I get the chance to. In fact, I'll tell you a little bit of story. I got the link to watch the film before midnight, and I keep watching it until 5 a.m. in the morning.
Really? Why? It's only 2.5 hours, right?
So I was making notes and kind of stopping and then trying to make notes, and there's so much notes, and at the end of the day, do you know what happened? Give up on the notes. I watched your film like 5 or 6 times in total, and I really loved it. So, you know, years ago.
Thank you so much.
You have done a great job, Mabel. Years ago, in 1988, I think, I got a random chance to watch the Up series of documentary. I don't know, have you heard about it? It's a
it is in a BBC documentary.
I think it's not BBC. The name would come to me, but
maybe some. But anyway, it follows a group of people every 7 years, right?
Right, exactly.
So it's called 7 Up.
Right,
yes, I watched that too.
Right, you watched that too, hey? So, did you love it?
Yeah, I think I loved the first few episodes, but gradually some of the people were not willing to be interviewed anymore, and some grow. When they grow up, of course, they know how to hide themselves. It's not like when they were children. They were all frank and open and really genuine.
Yeah, obviously, when they are young, like 7 years old or 14 years old, they are so open. In a sense, like very much like your documentary. To me, I call the Up series like a national treasure for Brits. In a sense, it captured them. I watched the first 4 films, 7, 14, 21, and 28, all in one go during that 1988 summer. And since then, I've loved longitudinal documentary, and I think your film qualifies as a longitudinal documentary. You filmed the students for 7 years, right? And then 3 years for editing. Is that right?
I think it's until the school, the new campus was finished. That was in 2019. So it's from I filmed them from 2011 until 2019, which is was also the year of the social movement and also the COVID.
Right, yeah. There's scenes of people in masks and the COVID, and I have to tell you, the first like less than 60 seconds of the film, it almost maybe I cry easy. It kind of moved me. The imagery, the clouds, the girls in the backs, and then the fronts, and then a transition into the protest movement. And that, in a sense, kind of touched me. It set the stage of the big era, 10 years or so of the girls, the students' life, right? And did you ever imagine that you would be making not just a film for maybe mostly your fellow, how do you call it? 其他師妹啊，
英華girls
or parents or teachers. Instead, it's a film, I think, fit for Hong Kongers and even for generations. That's why I call it a national treasure. So have you thought of that in the beginning?
Well, actually, in the beginning, nobody knows what will happen. But then I knew already when the headmistress asked me to make this film, I know already at least I have to spend 6 years in the making.
Right.
And it's a long time already.
It is.
I didn't know that it ended up in 10 years. But I thought if I am going to spend 6 years in making this film, I would like to make a film not just about the school, or the campus of the building of the new campus, or just the growing up of a bunch of girls, because I knew then that these girls signify they can represent the generation of this generation of people born in the year 2000, the new generation. And I think I would, back then, I was thinking maybe I can make a film for that generation of people and for the people of Hong Kong, because while you are making the film, society will change also. And we can also reflect the changing of society and the environment, and the impact of that on the growing up of these girls. So back then, I'm already trying to convince this large group of people who helped me to make this film that we are making a film of some impact, hopefully.
Right. And you even has a few scenes in the film talking about the making of the film, which is kind of necessary in a sense. And remind me if I forgot. There's so many things I want to talk about. The list of questions, which is why it's there, but I long time dropped it, and based on what you said, I'm going with it because it's such a great film. I watch it so many times; it's kind of burned inside my mind. So
thank you.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So you the girls did. Let's go to the scene. So the girls did change their mind at some point. Like, wow, like you filming me too much, so much. Like, and that leads to the discussion. So which can be also a question about consent, right? In the film, you talked about getting the one of the girls talk about I think it's Brittany talking about talking with parents about parents signing the consent and whatnot. So how did that process go? Can you talk a little bit about that? And then the school approval and a little bit of that, maybe.
Actually, when I was studying film, I started off working for the BBC in England, because I studied at the Bristol University, and already in Bristol, I worked for the BBC as just a production assistant and a translator, because they wanted to make a film about a village in Hong Kong. Anyway, back then I already knew that making a documentary is difficult, because the most difficult part is to get the consent of the people. I mean, they might have given you the consent at the beginning because they thought it's really, fabulous, amazing that we can make a documentary about ourselves. But after it's finished, they usually regret it, because after watching themselves on the screen, they would all have all kinds of strange questions about how they look, how fat they looked on the screen, and why they were not given makeup so they can look better, or the things they say, how could I have talked about that in that way? I
mean, by the way, when you did that, did you show them footage all along the way, or are you talking about at the end, like 10 years, like when the film is done, showing to them? Like, at what stage did they get to see themselves? Oh, I'm fat, or I don't have makeup. And
well, I showed them the trailers from time to time in school. The school has to encourage them and to let the people know that we were Yes, like every 2 years we showed our footage. Just a short trailer,
trailer,
like
right? So like a few minutes,
few minutes.
Like 5 minutes or longer?
Yeah, like maybe 10 minutes or
10
something
minutes.
like that.
Okay.
To let the people know that we were making a film.
Right.
And that they are aware that what we were doing, because we look very strange going around the campus
So
with
did
cameras
the
and
school,
yeah,
did
the whole school.
get
Yeah,
to watch them, or it's just
yeah, the
like
whole school, the whole school.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
very involved. So how many girls, can you talk about how many girls did you start filming on year 1, and then now like year 9, right? So the number of girls, I think you kind of screen out, right? I think you have the most number of girls on year 1. Is that right?
Yeah. We were given by the school. They have chosen about more than 50 people.
50.
And because they all look the same, more or less, with glasses and tie up their hair and look really ordinary. And
School requirement, right? I think tied up the hair.
a school requirement. So all the girls look really like ordinary. So in order to get to know them better, I asked them to write a letter to their 19-year-old self, and that's how the title we have chosen is reflected on this letter. And from that letter, we get to know them better. We know who has more independent thoughts and who are more interesting. So from there, we chose about 35.
35. That's a lot of.
Yeah, and yeah, already a lot. And we asked them to come for an interview. And you see that they sit in a circle, and we asked like the Miss Hong Kong to, I said, you wanted to be the Miss Hong Kong, and can you walk
I see. So that was where that scene come from.
Yeah, so she walked, really, she had studied how a Miss Hong Kong should walk.
She
so
watched
I thought,
a few years of Miss Hong Kong and like.
Yeah, so we thought that she's really interesting, and that's how we chose our girls. But then we knew that these girls or their parents would maybe regret it when they see the whole film. So so we have asked all the parents, but because they were underage, and we have asked all the parents to sign a contract, giving the right to the school, and how I got the right of final cut. That's what I asked from the school. They don't have to give me money, they don't have to give me credits, but I have to get the right of final cut, because I know if after cutting like 3 years, I didn't realize then, but if you cut after all the hard work, this girl said, I want to cut this out, and this teacher said, I want to cut that out, and then there's no way I can finish the film. So they were all given a contract to sign for universal right, for eternity, for everything, not eternity, from now until the end of the world or something like that.
Right. The standard legal wordings. Right. So that is kind of the legal side, contract height of it. But are there some cases where it's really the girl super not like something that they ask, can this be out, and you reconsider, or what's the decision like? Or was it always, I've got the final cut, and then I'm not changing the director's mindset?
That also happened. I didn't show them. I just showed them clips and trailers from time to time. But it's after 10 years they first got to see the whole film.
The whole film now, not trailers. The whole film.
Yeah, the whole film they just got to see before we show it to the school for a fundraising screening.
Which has a press conference, which I think the clip is online, and I think I may have seen that. Some of the girls.
But the film was first shown in the school's fundraising night. Because we didn't know how to distribute it, and we didn't know whether we can have a person who is really interested, a distributor who is really interested. And of course, Golden Scene showed their interest, but that was before we signed the contract or anything. Anyway, we showed it to the girl, and every single one of them, after watching the film, they got really amazed and also shocked, because they have never seen themselves on the big screen like that. And many of them, you know, when they first saw the film, they just saw themselves. They didn't see the film as a whole. They just watched that bit of themselves on the screen, and they felt so uneasy.
The spidey sense came up when they see on the big screen, nothing else.
And even the vice principal, you know, the Siu Feng, who said that I want to drown the girls with God's love. And she was so embarrassed. She said, I cannot let them see that line, because it's so embarrassing, and I couldn't sleep for a few nights. Please, can you cut it out? I said, there's no way I cut that out, because I thought that's the best thing you have said in the whole film.
Exactly. I love that line.
And based on that, I really have courage to continue, because there was a time when all the girls wouldn't talk to me. So they have also each of the girls said, they only say, oh, please do not show me. Can you not cut me out entirely? You know, things like that. So although we have signed the contract, and I don't want the girls to feel bad, and I want them to be willing to share their story to the audience.
It's a balance, right? I mean, as you know, I'm a documentary director too, so I do know about getting the subject, especially if like it's an adult subject. It's a politician. My first debut documentary, politician. You sign something like, I'm not editing anything. I have director final cut. But with a kid, right? I mean, 11 years old, well, even though the parents sign it, so I think that's what you feel, right? You kind of feel that with the kids. But then here's the thing, right? If I understand you correctly, what you told me, every few years, every 2 years, they see a snippet. So they got some sense, right?
No, they couldn't get the sense, because nobody got the sense of what this film is going to be
about.
No, nobody, not even myself. I mean, after I changed so many times, like over 10 versions. Like this, the film you saw is about the 15th version of the film. So not the headmistress, not the school or any of the parents or girls, they couldn't visualize what the film would come out to be. But then that's an issue we have to address. And we spent half a year trying to console the girls and talk to them and ask them to see the films more times, so they know that they're just a small bit of the whole, and that this film is about not just themselves, it's about people of their generation. It's about Hong Kong, the changes in Hong Kong in those traumatic years. And gradually they open up to the idea. And I think after several viewing, they begin to see the significance of the entire film. And they didn't concentrate only on their parts. And Siu Feng, you know, the vice principal, she spent a lot of time talking to them and understanding their issues and difficulties. And gradually they open up and thought that they can share their story. And
I think that's part of the teaching too, right?
It's a part of the teaching, education.
In the school or in the room or when there's some tests in it. But the talking and the thing is understanding the self-learning. That's the process, right? I mean, if they only can see, oh, I don't have makeup, or I sing off key a little.
That's me too.
then it's missing the whole big picture, right? So
so you only see a bit of the tapestry, but you cannot see the whole. But then I think they have grown up during the process, because accepting their past is a very important part of growing up. And they have accepted their past. Even Brittany,
I love that.
you know, it's so difficult for her to face her
I
past,
bet.
and
I bet.
it is really amazing that
I
she
said,
connects.
Brittany is so brave, right? So
Yes, she's
many
brave.
adults were not able to talk about things that she talked about it in the movie. And I hope not only students, adults, teachers, and whatnot can learn from her experience, what she was so generous to share. Right? I mean, that's a hard part. A lot of adults even have similar issues. To her, were not brave enough. Brave is the right word, Mabel, I think.
She's brave. And actually, at the end, she said to me, since I've made the film and I've made the promise, 我就硬食啦，硬食，我唔知點譯做英文，硬食。
One tough cookie. Yeah, she'll just
tough
take it
cookie.
whole, right?
She said, I would take it like it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then as now, for many of the sharing after the screening, she came and she shared her story and she shared her life with the audience.
Right. It's so important. So before I forget, there will be a lot of things before I forget. So 15th edition, right? And at this time, I want to say, I'm sorry for the passing of Alex, your life partner and your creative partner. But he watched the first two versions, right? And he said, "Oh, like what happened in those two versions compared to version 15? How did you edit the first? Like when there's a process, right? So I guess this interview is not just for general viewers, which it is, but then also for filmmakers and potential documentary directors. So how did you come to the first version and the second version, and what did Alex see in Mabel?
Actually, the first version is just a putting together of the girls in a chronological order. So Brittany will show her story entirely, and then we go to the second girl. So it is like cutting each girl by itself, and it didn't work because the girls, if you just watch her by herself, her story, it can be quite boring. At some point there's not much happening, and it's difficult to make it interesting. So I threw away all the first and second and third version,
which is similar,
and
like all the girls.
No, the second one maybe I started to make them in a chronological order, in a longitudinal way, but then also in a cross section. And so I started to
girls together. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, the girls together, like the structure now. So it's like making a tapestry. You have the lines going in a chronological order, and you have lines going in a cross section order. So longitudinal and horizontal.
Right.
Longitudinally and horizontally, and we started that direction, and that makes it more interesting because
like the current version, right? Like the version we audience see 15. So kind of different girls in different one age, and then different girls showing up, and not strictly. Is that what you mean? I'm trying to get.
Yeah. It's what I mean. It's because you have, of course, you have to watch them in a chronological order, because then because they look so different every year. They look so different, so you have to see the growing up of each girl. But then horizontally, every year they have, it is very after watching them grow up, I begin to realize that every year they have something in common. I mean, growing up is a very strange thing. All the girls, like reaching a certain age, they would be interested in more or less the same thing. Or they would be
1 year and then
like
go ahead.
Yes, like in the first year, all the girls were very much attached to their family. So the first year, it is a family year. So we show the girls with their fathers and parents, and how they reacted with their family, because that is very important to the growth of each individual.
Right.
And the family, I discovered, is very important and influential in the growth of these girls. And if they have a very understanding and loving parents, then they would be very happy, like a Birdie.
Yeah. And on Birdie, I want to mention one scene I love. I'll keep on throwing stuff like this. One scene I love is Birdie holding hand. My father passed away last year. So Birdie holding hands with Daddy. Or let me flip it this way. Daddy holding Birdie's hand. And then a few years later, Birdie's like, red hand. I don't want Daddy's hand. And that scene touched me a lot because my dad passed away last year. And it's the preciousness of moments, right? It's only in hindsight when you look back. That was really cool. I don't have dad to hold my hands anymore. It's like, shit, I want, pardon my language, but I want to hold my dad's hand, 80 something, but he left last year. So that kind of sucked. But watching that scene of like her little hand holding daddy's or daddy's hand holding her little hand, and then later, oh, that warms my heart. Yeah, maybe.
Well, she didn't like that scene. She asked me to cut it out, but I said, "Wait, it's very embarrassing." And then
Which one? The younger one or older one?
No, she
Birdie,
tried to get out of
like the younger holding hand version or the older her.
When she was walking with her father in the rain,
right.
And she said, "Oh, yeah, please take your hands off. It's too wet."
Right,
that scene. She said that scene she didn't like.
No.
She thought, "Oh wow, this is really embarrassing."
The two scenes work together because that's part of growing process. As we grow older, we kind of
don't want to hold hands, right?
Exactly.
When you were small, you hold them, and afraid that they will take their hands away.
Right.
But when you grow up, you want to be free. That's what they are. But then still now that she's 20 something and she felt embarrassed. I'm sure when she grew up to be 40 something, 50 something, she looked back, she will look back and see how precious that image is.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I felt. Sorry for interrupting you, but keep going. So I was asking about the different editions. So you took 3 years to edit, right? So this may be for a little bit for the editor or people curious about how the making of it. So did those?
Oh, okay. Let me finish what I'm saying about the structure, right? Okay.
Right.
So after the first year, we concentrate on the family, which is most influential in the growing up of these young people. And the second year, we discovered that they started to have idols. So the second year, the title would be for the cross section of all these girls would be boy god, girl gods, and their followers. That 男神女神觀音兵, because in that year they started to have idols. They like the K-pop people, and they like they become 男神 and boy gods and girl gods in their school. And they have started to collect 觀音兵, collect their followers.
Right.
And if you separate them into each individual, it is not significant because, well, they told me I like 少女時代, or I like Justin Bieber. That's not very interesting. But if you put them all together, it becomes an episode. It becomes very interesting. So that's how I built up the momentum of each year. Because putting them together, you started to see all these girls and this younger generation when they are 14, 15, or 15, they started to have idols and they started to collect followers. And that makes it more interesting. So you asked all the assistant editor to collect all the information about the girls in this year, talking about the boy gods and girl gods and their followers and how they collect the followers.